Hi, so patch 6.2.3 week 2 in the middle of. This week don't have to farm as much Valor to make sure all my gear's upgraded. I was a little worried last week that the stuff I'd be upgrading with my Valor I'll end up getting, I'll probably end up going Warforged, coining Warforged versions or something like that. And then I've wasted all the Valor points from last week and have to get even more this week and have to do it again and probably go into a third week. Fortunately, and it was never likely to happen, thank God, but it didn't happen too much. It did happen a little in the most comical way imaginable. My class trinket on Tuesday evening, which is the day before the reset in Europe, I used the last of my Valor points from the first week to upgrade that. And then I coined the Warforged socketed version the very next day, before I'd even used my upgraded class trinket properly. So yeah, it'll have cost me 1,000 Valor points to upgrade that. But at least I know that I won't have to spend any more on it. I mean, Warforged socketed, you can't say fairer than that. But yeah, at first when I got it, you should be delighted, shouldn't you? At first when I got it, I thought, shit. Basically, shit. First world problems, eh? Then been doing the heroic dungeons again each day. I don't mind. If there's a reason to do heroic dungeons, I don't mind doing them. I quite like them, in fact. But it does sometimes have... And it is fortunately amusing. It would be less amusing if it was in more difficult content. When you get the people popping the ring in strange moments, like I had it last week. I decided to record a little bit of it this week. I was in Everbloom today. And first trash pack, we virtually killed it. And someone popped the ring. I thought, well, I've got to start recording this. So yeah, with the ring was just there while I'm trying to jump up that little hill in Everbloom, which I don't know how to do because I haven't done Everbloom on a regular basis for since the game came out. Well, the expansion came out, I should say. I was able to do it back then because you were sort of doing it reasonably regularly. But I can't remember anymore. So I end up just jumping up and down like an idiot until someone who can get up gets on the two-man mount and I just hop onto that and they give you a leg up. I don't know why we don't just go around it bloody quicker. But, and then there was another interesting point, and this is something I do take issue with. And I think the first time I really had an issue with this is in Wrath, which is the first time a usable dungeon finder, it wasn't quite in the way you had to physically get to the dungeon, but a matchmaking usable dungeon finder was introduced. There was sort of one in TBC, but it was a bit crap. Optional bosses. I don't like any feature in the game that encourages antisocial behaviour, and optional bosses encourage it like you won't believe. Because you get someone who wants to do it, and then you get others who don't. And ultimately, the person who wants to do it will generally lose out, unless the person who wants to do it happens to be pretty vital, such as a tank, as is happens today. The tank wanted to do the optional boss, the spider boss. I ain't got a problem with that. Yes, I only want to go in and get my Valor, but I am perfectly prepared when I go into a dungeon to do the whole dungeon. If people want to do that, I'm not going to complain. There's 4 human beings in there with me, and we've all got our reasons for being there. So the tank wants to do it, and other people then start moaning. And I'm thinking to myself, if this wasn't the tank, they'd just say no, sod you, and carry on to the next boss. But because it's the tank, and they didn't much fancy... I mean, I would have fancied tanking the trash if I was going to be an arsehole, but I was perfectly prepared to go down with him, and we did. We just finished that boss. But all the time, this other one was just moaning all the time. Moan, 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 moan. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Just get it done. It don't take long. But I just wish they wouldn't put optional bosses in, because the most common way of doing these dungeons is doing it in a random pug. And you will always get some people who want to do it and some people who just want to blast through as quickly as possible to get to the end where you get your reward. It's not the dungeon itself that people wanted to do. And so, yeah. And in other things, I mean, the Hellfire Citadel, we did the Hellfire Citadel raid on Wednesday. Timing's completely out. Sometimes it didn't work out too badly. Cormrock and Iron Reaver were really good ones to contrast, because Iron Reaver, you know, was, with a really short fight, you're always going to get a good percentile. But my actual damage in the group was horrendous. And it generally wouldn't have been. And then Cormrock the other way around. Overall damage reasonably good. Which, when I sort of focus on damage on hands and things like that. It always will be, because you've got the option to do that. But I don't pad, like, I don't chuck Light's hammer down or anything like that. So the actual percentile was not as high. Really weird. But then there were some fights that were just completely threw me out. Tyrant Valor is a fight with quite careful. You want to have quite careful use of cooldowns, especially when you use Seraphim, such as I do. I mean, the Retribution thing. So yeah, I completely cocked that one up. Completely. Shocking. So I'm going to have a... But again, next week I'll have a look at it and I'll probably go, okay, I'll do that. And then next week the timings will change again. But hopefully then it should settle down a little bit. Because after next week we've all got our plus 10 item level upgrade. And that's it. It can just sort of settle down to then. And then after next week as well, for us, Warlords of Draenor is basically over. Because... the content that we're doing at the moment is just for getting the Valor points. Once we don't need that anymore, nothing really more to do. Obviously, we keep clearing Hellfire Citadel, and some people will do outraids and things like that. But ultimately, that's it. So I'm probably going to sort of combine this with the Legion sort of vlog, because the focus is going to be entirely on Legion. The current someone in my guild, first of all, mentioned it, and then a couple of people on Alpha seem to be say they've heard the same thing, that because at the moment it is just Alpha at the moment, and a few people call it Beta, but it's not. And all you've really got is Demon Hunters. But Beta, actual Beta, is supposed to be literally just around the corner, perhaps even next week, where they'll open out other classes. Now, whether I will be in it or not, I don't know. But if I'm not, hopefully some people will be, especially the class I want to play, Retribution Paladin, and we'll be able to give out lots of good information, because it's all right looking at the talent calculators, it's all right looking at the artifact calculator, which came out today. I've done a couple of videos on that already. But we don't know how reliable they are. It's data mine stuff. It's always a bit dodgy. So we want to see how it's actually working, and what's what in the beta itself, before we sort of start drawing conclusions, start being able to provide any meaningful feedback. So I'm looking forward to that, and that hopefully will be out in the next week, which should, the timing should work out pretty well. In the meantime, another thing I am doing is I'm planning on supplementing the channel with like a blogging website. So some of the things I talk about in the videos, I'll also produce like articles on that as well. In particular for my Retribution Paladin guide, so there's a written version as well, but also other things that come up, and use it to sort of blog on various things in Legion, especially once I'm able to get into the beta itself and able to test out things that perhaps other people aren't, or just in my particular way or something like that. So those are my plans for now, to keep me busy while we're just sort of doing one night's raiding a week. And as I say, from next week it's likely this is likely to sort of combined with the Legion thing, because I don't see anything else now in Warlords of Draenor for me to really worry about. We'll have done it. Well, I'll have done it all. Some people obviously are still progressing. There's still Warlords of Draenor for them. I mean, that's an interesting thing that I've thought about, because I was looking at numbers that have killed Gorefiend and Manaroth and Archimond on Mythic mode, which are the three tough ones, the three speed bumps in progress. And then sometime for most skills there'll be another boss as well, but that sort of varies. Haven't been necessarily massive numbers, extra numbers killing them. And I did think to myself, well, part of the difficulty is not just DPS checks anyway, it is other things, and you've still got to learn those mechanics, regardless of how good your gear is. But the other thing could just be, maybe the actual extra influx of gear has made it more difficult in some ways, because your timings are thrown out completely. You have to go back to the drawing board and rethink how you're going to do it. Because, there's sometimes on any of those fights, there potentially are times when you take DPS off, or take DPS off certain targets to wait for things. So maybe that's just thrown it out. I don't know, because I was not expecting, but I was wondering if there would be much greater numbers having killed these bosses. Manaroth in particular, not that many extra seem to have killed him. So there you go. But that's it for now. There's a couple of other videos coming out this weekend, mostly for Retribution Paladins. But I'm also going to have a look at, as I mentioned last week, utility according to the data mine stuff for the different classes, and compare those. and see what we've got, see what all the different classes are going to be bringing. But until then, I'll see you later.